Good morning, and welcome. Sorry about that. We had technical difficulties this morning for some odd reason when we posted the actual link for this a week ago. For some reason, I think it goes over 7 days, it seems to remove it. So we had to start everything all over again and add everything back in. So sorry about that. Today, we're going to be talking about neuro-linguistic programming, as well as how you can use NLP to influence and to help people, or to understand people better, I guess. So everything the human mind understands is through physical movement or visual cues or language patterns. I'm going to try to cover as much of that today as I can. And just an open comment to anybody out there, feel free that if you don't like my content or you have an issue with the content, or you just feel like it's not something for you, feel free to remove yourself off of the list, just because I don't want to have negative comments. And I know I'm in social media and I'm expecting that. So I will be dealing with negative comments as they come along. But I want that out there, and I want people to understand that I don't need people to follow me. I enjoy people following me. That being said, let's get to some ideas and processes. First of all, my name is Michael Almaraz. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm a neuro-linguistic programmer. I am a life and business coach. I go into some of the spiritual realms. I'm not a spiritual person, highly spiritual. I'm not a person that sits there and says, oh my goodness, let's pray over this, let's do this, or let's get the energy from the tree, or I try to be as centered and as balanced as possible. And I've been doing business now for 25 years, helping people change their lives one thought and one process at a time. And today we're going to kind of talk a little bit about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, what it is, how it works, why it does what it does. So neuro-linguistic programming, we discover how human beings communicate in their mind or within themselves, and with their environment, right? I mean, if somebody's sitting there and you see them doing this and they're kind of shaking a little bit, they're either cold or they're very upset. And you can tell by the physiological process that's going on inside their head. It's how we humans process information inside our mind. You can discover patterns that are changing. They're constantly changing, but it has to do with certain techniques or specific ideas that are happening inside the unconscious behavior. So there's techniques that we use on an everyday basis as humans: visualization, processing of tactile sensations, emotional feelings, unconscious behaviors, and unconscious cues. All of this has to do with how the human mind operates on the inside and the outside. So in order for that to happen, those of you who are in the medical industry or who understand what homeostasis is that the body tries to naturally find this balance inside and out. Well, as an NLP practitioner, you can see those changes. You can see those physiological changes. If you're really good, you can see just slight changes. So for instance, if you ask somebody a question and they're not willing to answer, you're going to see them go into this negative state. Or they're going to answer, they're going to look down, they're going to look around. And it's interesting because a lot of times what happens is that people's cues, when people get cues about what's happening on the outside, they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to answer those cues. They don't know how to look at those cues and be able to respond to it. A lot of speech rate. So if I'm talking to you really fast like this and I'm working on trying to get all the information into you and I'm going to make it very clear and very specific, then you're going to follow it. And it could be overwhelming to some people. The key is moderation in the voice. Everything's NLP, right? Neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro meaning how the brain understands or operates with something. Linguistic meaning the pattern of how you're receiving it, whether it's physiological, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. There is, and the kinesthetics feel, right? So if there's any way that you're accessing these cues through life, through environment, through sensations, as an NLP practitioner, if we can watch that and we can sense that, we can cue into that. And I always say that in order for there to be change, there has to be leverage, right? So if you can get the leverage in, you can find out what that person needs for change. So that being said, some of the things that we watch when we're watching for NLP or we're watching for cues, right, is to watch their visual mode of speech. They tend to be really fast when they're getting nervous or when they're trying to just get through something or when they're trying to give you so much information that there's this limited amount of time and they know that in their head. Body language is everything. A lot of things. I mean, you can watch body language and you can find all kinds of things. So Going in and seeing somebody who's just depressed and sad, and they're looking down, there's something wrong. It's a negative emotional state. So some people, when you ask a question and they don't know the answer, you'll see them kind of look around. They're going to look for answers in their head, and then they'll verbally explain what they're saying or what they're seeing. People who are lying a lot of times will look down to the right. They'll conjure a process or conjure an answer and then look back up at you, and they'll answer you straight out forward with their lie. A lot of times that happens, people are searching for lies or searching for some kind of an answer. You'll see them roll their eyes around, then look down to the far right, grab the information, pull it forward. People who are doing recalled memory will look up to the left and they'll recall the memory. Was that house, was that blue? Was it my house when I grew up? Did it have a blue door? Ask yourself that question. Feel where your eyes go. When I grew up, what color was the door in my house? In the entryway of my door, what color was that? You find that you look up to the top, you do memory recall, then you verbalize your expression. Reframing is something that we do in hypnosis and NLP. I'm going to teach you a little bit about that today. Timeline and history change, right? And what I say about changing history is that your timeline is everything we are and everything we've been. But that being said, in order for change to happen, the timeline has to change, right? So if you had a negative experience when you were young, and that negative experience could be maybe, oh, you lost an ear, or maybe you lost an arm or a leg, or, I had a client one time that saw a coworker get taken through a shredder, through a tree shredder, never dealt with it, but that timeline still existed in his head. And it was very interesting is that he had never had anything surface until after retirement, leaving the job, leaving the experience. Then little pieces started coming in of depression and anxiety. Now that core root started in the timeline, right? So if you can't deal with the timeline specifically and re-engage the timeline to be able to change those emotions or sensations or states, you know how I talk about the undercurrent of the ocean? Well, that undercurrent is existing of those past emotions and sensations. So that obviously what was happening to him was that he would come forward, he'd grab those emotions, he'd pull them forward, and then he'd have this sense of depression or anxiety, not really understanding where that stemmed from. So, if you can get into the timeline, you can reframe the timeline. You can reframe emotions or sensations that happened in the past. That's why hypnosis is so great, because it goes into the unconscious behavior and it evolves in time. And that's why it's important to be able to have a client that's coming to me, or for your own self. You have to first know there's a problem, right? And if you feel like you're just negative all the time, or your life has just been shit to you, you need to find out why. If you're not having a good experience and you're not enjoying things for what they are, go into therapy. Find a psychotherapist, find a psychologist, find somebody that can go in and help you understand, where is this stemming from? Where's it coming from? Once you know that, hypnosis can work for you. But unless you come in knowing where this core root is or why is this happening, it's hard to go in and change the reframe or change the timeline. So reframing is a simple process. When you have the dialogue in your head that's negative, reframe it. And I'll tell you one real easy one for me. I hate making content outside of my house. I hate going out to shoot videos because I just feel like it doesn't feel genuine to me. It doesn't feel like it's who I am. And I know that it's important for me to do, because I have to be able to get this content out to people. I have to be able to continue giving people what they need and what they want, right? So that's why it's interesting. So I had to tell myself, I don't have to go shoot a video today. I get the opportunity to. So reframe your own mind. I get the opportunity today to do. I am excited that today is going to be a day that I have the opportunity to go shoot new videos and new content. It's a mind frame. It's a sensation of changing that. If you feel emotions during a timeline, it's kind of easy to find those emotions in the timeline. When you think back at something, and if it's got a negative feeling or an emotion to it, then it's probably negative in the timeline. It's sitting inside that timeline, and it's running a underlying pattern inside the unconscious behavior. It does come and it grabs you. What I find interesting is that a lot of stuff is queuing in on that these days. AI, artificial intelligence, is using a lot of NLP. It's working on how people feel, it's taking data all the time, understanding how people's emotions are operating out online, and then it's feeding into those emotions. So if you are part of a group that is constantly feeding you negative stuff, Instead of saying gas prices are high because of, Ukraine, gas prices are high because of inflation, gas prices are high, and they start telling you gas prices are high, and you need to fight for that. You need to go in. You need to change that. You need to argue with this. This politicians are doing this to you. Everybody's doing this to you. Gas stations are raping you. That's a process that you have to kind of understand, is that when this is being fed to you on a consistent over and over basis, it's creating this negative stops inside your own personal timeline. So you have to be able to understand, if there's a negative emotion being thrown at you, you will accept it eventually if it goes over and over again. And that's what's really kind of scary about AI, is that artificial intelligence is working really well with that. It's great that you'll never have to think about what it is that you want, right? You can go to the grocery store and everything's right there for you. Or you can go in and you can, get pushed on your phone something that you were thinking about buying, and then it gives you that opportunity to buy it, maybe at a discounted rate, right? So in AI, information is awesome. It's working really, really well, but it's also scary on the other spectrum of that when we start putting it into politics, into religion, into, things that used to be a fundamental basis for people to live by is now becoming corrupt and distraught based on the emotional feelings that AI is causing people to feel. In the past, people used to hold back on emotions, hold back on things they had to say. And now it just seems like everybody's just spewing diarrhea at the mouth, because AI is feeding that into people's neurology. It's feeding that into the wave of how we operate as human beings. Techniques that will transform your life are catch that language pattern. If you're negative, stop, reframe it, and make it positive. And I do a process, a program that I work with my clients, where I have them go through and one day just write down all the negative that comes out of your mouth. Reframe those negatives into a positive if they need to be, right? And if it's something you don't like to do, I highly recommend you quit. And that's why at the very beginning of this, I said, if you don't like my content, you don't want to follow me, quit it, right? We have every right to change things in our lives, especially if they're not working for us. But you have to first go in and understand, why is that making me feel this way? Why am I not understanding that there's more to something? And it's important to be able to know that in order to transform yourself. Transformation starts with the inside of who you are. Go in, ask those questions, make that list, look at it, observe it, and then reframe it, right? That's a reframe process. Emotional structure is really important. So if you're feeling negative and you're feeling kind of sad, and let's say you wake up in the morning and it's just, it's going to be a difficult day. You've already convinced yourself of that. So you start kind of trying to get yourself going, and you step out of bed. You have a choice to make. The moment your foot hits the floor, you have a moment to get in your mind and say, okay, what am I doing today? What do I have to offer the world? Or what am I doing for myself today? Right? If you're self-indulging, what am I going to do today? Maybe I'm going to go to the spa today and just go ahead and only see one client. Or maybe I'm going to go out and work at a food kitchen to give myself the understanding that there's something else going on in the world that is much bigger and much larger than the emotion that I'm carrying in the morning that I woke up this way. So choices, right? One good thing I like to do that changes my mind state, that changes my neuro-linguistic process, is to get in the shower. And when I shower, I just feel the warm water touching me. I get it as nice and hot as I can. And I just begin to cleanse myself of negative emotion. I imagine that that's all leaving my body. And it's interesting because I had somebody yesterday tell me that I wasn't really a spiritual person, and that I had not. I mean, I get a lot of shit on social media. You guys know that it's just an open forum, and it's a battle zone, right? Sometimes it can be. And I've learned to deal with that over 25 years of being on platforms that just kind of feed into that. It's very interesting. It's gotten worse. But you have to be able to know what's happening internally for you. And I don't ever claim to be this spiritual person. I'm walking on water for you. And I think it's real important to go internal and understand that why is this sensation happening to me? Why are these emotions being flowed? Is it influence from outside? Is it influence from inside? But it's very difficult for us to look in the mirror and really be able to see who we are on the inside, right? We only go by that structure. And that's what I'll tell you, is that most people, 99.9% of the people in the world, are living by that undertow. They're not questioning, why is it that I feel that emotion when this happens every time? Or it just happens every time, and now it's become this way where it's like, oh, That's great. Now I met this person. This person's going to be a bad influence. This person's going to corrupt me. This person's going to give me negative emotions, negative states. This person's giving me. And I'm going to tell you that what people say or what people do not affect you. You let it affect you. So if somebody's telling you that you're whatever, right? Whatever's negative, you have a choice to make at that moment. You can either let those internal and neuro-linguistic processes boil up and you feel it, or you say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Do I need this person? Do I need to make this change? Feel free to make the change. It's really, really important. So speech rate is really important. Visual mode tends to be fast. So if visual people really do go quickly because they're seeing these flashes in their head and that's how they communicate. Auditory people will methodically speak and slow their patterns down and be able to really go in and eloquently say what they have to say. People that are tactile, you'll see them with a lot of movement. You'll see them physically moving their hands, moving their arms, moving their eyes, getting really involved in their conversation. The techniques that will transform your life are to go internal, really, more than anything. Find out why you're operating the way you're operating. Try to make the changes you want to make for yourself first. And, those moments when you meet somebody and you think, oh my gosh, this person's just awesome. It feels really good. This person's really a person I could be friends with, or I could go have a drink with. A lot of times it's physiological expression. You could meet somebody in a bar and never talk to that person, but just feel this connection for some reason. And this connection may be, oh, I know this person from somewhere else, or I would love to know that person a little bit more. That person just looks like they're having a great time, right? Those are all expressional neuro-linguistic triggers. Those are ideas that you're sensing in your own body, in your own state of mind. And in trance state, you can go in and you can look at the timeline, the history pattern, right? And go in and get those emotions to change based on what has happened to that individual in the past. And then get that new outcome to feel different when the trigger happens. So when that trigger happens, it's called collapsing triggers in NLP. We collapse the negative and we find out what is going to be the positive trigger. And in hypnosis, you get them to see, sense, and feel what the positive sensation is going to be as they move through the negative emotion. But you have to be able to know that in your timeline, in your history pattern, right? So I want to talk to you about some things. I'm going to give you guys some things that can help you understand a little bit more about how to use this process. But first, let's talk about a situation that just gave you a bad feeling, right? You knew that it just felt weird to you. And some of that is logic. Some of that's your brain processing. But remember, everything your brain's processing is based on a past experience, right? Your mind does not create experiences that it does not know. It might assume that an experience is something that you don't know and try to put into pieces, but 99.9% of the time, it's creating a dialogue or it's creating a answer to your question based on your past experiences, based on who you've been and where you've gone through life, right? So every person is an individual. Every human being's history is never the same. So when you feel those negative or those helpless feelings, or you're starting to feel that person's just like crazy, or that person's, my God, where's this coming from, right? You have to anchor yourself. You have to go back into that core belief of who you are, question it a little bit, slow it down, especially for visual, right? Because those numbers, those processes, those visions are coming in your head very rapidly. Stop it, slow it down, and say, am I out of cue with this? And if you are, walk away from the situation. It's easy to say, look, in a live event, it's easy to say, excuse me, I need to go get more food, or excuse me, I need the restroom, excuse me, I need to, and separate yourself from the negative emotion, because that'll give you the understanding or the internal self, right? To be able to walk away and say, okay, you know what, that wasn't me. And if it keeps happening over and over again, it's so important to be able to look at the timeline and say, is that emotion, this person's opinion affected me this way? Why? Is it coming in from a learned experience? Is it coming from maybe something happened to me in the past? Maybe it's a childhood process, right? I want to talk about rapport. Rapport is huge in NLP. Rapport, and I'll talk about one easy pattern you can use. If you want people to like you, people like, right? People like people who are like them. It's really important for you to be able to mirror and image someone, or to lead and pace someone. And we'll talk, if you're done any of our, if you ever done our NLP course trainings or anything like that, you understand or know what it's like to lead and pace. And for this instance right now, I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible. So let's say that there is a person at the end of the bar and you find them very attractive and interesting. Maybe you just want to talk to them. Maybe there's a connection feeling, right? So when that person lifts their drink and takes a drink out of their drink and sets it down, it becomes this dance in a way. So that person will take a drink, look at you. At some point, they're going to catch you looking at them and they're going to find it interesting. That builds this interconnection. Remember, people like people, right? So people like people who are like them. So as that continues to move on, you could just you're sitting there and you kind of settle in your chair. They'll settle in their chair. These cues, which are visual, become emotional. And the emotional state of that becomes a cue that brings you into a commonality, something that makes you feel connected to that person. That person's gonna feel connected to you. That, or they're gonna feel like, oh my gosh. And if it's if it's not subtle enough, they'll be like, oh my God, what's that creep doing? He keeps staring at me, right? So if the key is to have that perfect balance and to make the movements, the gestures be subtle, but be in a dance mode, be in a sequence mode that each of you are patterning each other after. Rapport is huge. A lot of times when you're speaking to somebody, it's really important to mirror and image them. So you meet somebody who's talking like this and they're talking very, very quickly. Oh my God, I was in a car accident. I'm working with a young lady right now who sells car insurance. And if they're speaking like that and they just got in a horrible car accident, you can't come back in with your language pattern and be like, oh my God, I am so sorry. Let me take care of that for you right now. The key is to mirror and image the emotion, the sensation, and the process. So their emotion is sad. Their emotion is upset because they've gotten in an accident. So you bring your pattern down, first mirror them quickly. Oh my God, I am so sorry. How can I help you? My name is Michael. I am in the blah, blah, blah insurance company. I'm assuming you're calling in to file a claim and it's going to be okay. Take a deep breath and relax, right? So you've mirrored their conversation by first feeling the impact of what they're feeling. Then you can bring them down in and start relaxing them in. Language pattern is important. I mean, you have to mirror and image their language pattern as well. You cannot be overexcited. You can't be underexcited. Imagine what it's like if you start talking to somebody and they're going, good morning. How are you? I hope everything's well with you. It's been a really, really difficult morning, hasn't it? So I get a lot of that from a depressed client. And the key is to mirror that at the beginning. But then we go into what we call leading and pacing. So I'm going to start leading you in a new direction. I'm going to start pacing you in that direction. And the end result is that I get you out of that negative state. I get you out of whatever emotion you're feeling or sensing. And I start bringing you into the process of being able to help you see something or understand something in a different light. Mirroring and imaging is a huge part of everyday structure. A lot of times we go through our life, we don't even notice other people. You just don't notice how people are acting or reacting. Working for an airline for 16 and a half years, I used to sit in the terminal and watch how humans interacted with each other. And it's interesting because by watching that, I now can tell where a client's coming from, or I can tell when a person's coming from. So working in the airline industry, somebody's, they're walking up to the counter and they have this look like, now they're coming with a negative state, right? So, or they're sitting there with their children and maybe they start yelling at the kid. Maybe you can tell that it's not necessarily the frustration of them and the child, it's frustration of everything they've experienced to get to this terminal and to get to this airport and to get to this waiting lounge. Experiences from people's history, even if it's a moment, an hour behind, right? If you observe them, you can see them, you can sense them, you can understand where they're coming from. And then you can either get in the pattern with them, because you always have to mirror an image. All right. If you don't mirror them just enough to get them to feel comfortable, how do you trust somebody? All right. And I think that a lot of times what happens is that the rapport isn't built long enough. And when you can't build rapport, it comes off odd. Rapport is important. Once you build that rapport with mirroring and imaging, leading and pacing, then what happens is the rapport will help you be able to feel more comfortable and more confident. I'm not saying you have to be friends with everybody, but what I'm saying is that you either find a way to live among them, unless they're toxic. And I will say this over and over again: evacuate these people out of your life, get rid of them. You don't need constant negative people. So some people have gone through their whole life being in this negative zone all the time. They hold it with them. They carry it with them. That is who they are. And the problem with that is that when we start being negative or having emotions that are negative in our body, right, eventually it becomes stimulating. Because remember, I always like to say this, our mind and our body operate on two fields: pleasure and pain. If it's painful enough and it continues being painful, you'll eventually take that on as being part of your neurological senses. That'll become who you are. The key element is that if you're getting that from friends around you constantly, you got to make a change. You cannot continue being fed that, especially if that's not who you are. So think about that for a little bit. Getting other people to like you is complete rapport. I mean, if you can build the rapport and you can use the easy set of NLP techniques that I've given you, the mirroring and imaging, leading and pacing, getting visual cues. I mean, let's take a moment, go out one day and just observe people. Notice what's happening to them. Notice how they're emotionally charged or not charged, right? Are they just in a very calm, comfortable place? Are their hands lying to their side? Are their feet flat on the floor? Are they just kind of chill and hanging out? Perfect process. Perfect place for you to try NLP. Walk up to that person and say, "Hey, how are you? Hope you're having a great day." And engage the conversation. Then start really watching the language patterns of what they're doing. Watch how their timeline affects everything they do. All right. Their language pattern, how they're saying their day is going, how they're saying their life is going. They'll get real. People love to talk. Listen to people. It'll teach you how to be able to understand that person more. You can get along with virtually anyone once you learn these techniques. All right. Thank you guys so much. I hope that's been useful for you, and leave your DMs in the comments down below, and I'll answer them as quickly as I can. YouTube, you guys are awesome. Appreciate you guys. Facebook, share and express this with other people if you think people can understand this. If you have a negative Nelly in your life, and the tide of our lifestyle right now, the tide of our politics, the tide of the life we're living in right now is pulling a lot of this up. I guess people are losing self-respect for each other, and it's kind of scary. But the idea is that I'm here hoping that I can give you a little nugget, a piece of information that'll help you live a better life and help you, change things. I made a lot of changes in my life, and I think you will too. And the key is that as you make these changes, you grow, you enrich, you become a better person, you become somebody who can unconditionally love and give back. And that's today's show. I appreciate you guys joining me. If you have any questions about NLP, DM me. I love the DMs, because then we can open up a platform and I can actually either make you a video, or I can go ahead and one-on-one address specifics for you. So once again, my name is Michael Almaraz. I'm a clinical hypnotist and a neuro-linguistic programmer. I've been a business and life coach for the last 25 years. DM me, reach out to me. I'm here for you, and I wish you guys all the best. Take care and have a great weekend. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And the replay viewers, share this, move it out there, get people involved, and let's build a community. Bye-bye.
I think these videos are brilliant, and I'm sure you will like them too. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell.